I wanted to talk a little bit about this concept of evolution of directional development, of, that everything happens, everything is directional, basically. Like, I think this is one of the problems that even doctors face, is that whenever a patient comes, they want to be from sick to healthy right away, within a day. But we all know that it doesn't happen like that. It all goes through stages. Sometimes you have to feel bad in order to feel better later on. But it is like this in everything in life, and so it is also in the spiritual path. I was very happy that Naya Swami Nitai was here this past couple weeks, and he was talking about education for life. And it seems that people love to acronyms, so we tend to call it all the time EFL, 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 or some people call Autobiography of a Yogi AY instead of Autobiography of a Yogi. And I don't personally like those things too much because they lose power. When we start saying, let's say Nita is going to talk about EFL, we kind of, in my opinion, obviously there is convenience to saying these acronyms, but we demean the power of it a little bit. Because if you think of it, Swami Kriyananda didn't call it education for children. He called it education for life. And going to his talks, some people may say, well, he's talking about education, why would I need to go? I'm not a parent, I'm not a teacher. But really, it's education for life. And going to his talks, when he spoke with so much depth that it makes you realize so many truths about the spiritual path. Even a simple concept that Swami Kriyananda explained, maturity as being the ability to relate to situations outside of your own. That can be applied to the spiritual seeker so much that we're always trying to expand our level of awareness all the way till we identify ourselves, till our awareness identifies itself with God consciousness alone, with God's will alone. But also that quality of directional development that, he talked in it more for children, perhaps in the book, Swamiji, but really is for everybody. And that has to do with the three gunas as well. That if somebody is very much in tamoguna, or the darkening quality, or the heavy quality, you cannot expect them to be doing something very sattvic right away, something that is completely light. That we have to find ways to work with these things with other people, but even so, more importantly perhaps, with ourselves. Now there is a wonderful story of Master of Yogananda, that although we tell it many times, it is just worth repeating over and over. And this is a vision that he had when he was a child. That he had a vision that he was in a dusty marketplace. And people were going left and right, animals, donkeys, You can imagine all this chaos going around him. But once in a while, somebody will stop right in front of him and look somewhere behind Mukunda Yogananda with a hopeful look, with a yearning. But then at some point, they'll say, no, it's just way too high. And then they will go again into the business of the marketplace. And this happened several times until Yogananda, in his vision, decided to turn around and see what were all these people looking at. And then he saw that behind him there was a mountain, and on top of this mountain there was a valley, an oasis, like a beautiful place, a land of dreams, you could say, that especially compared to the dusty marketplace with all the restlessness, all the chaos, it seemed like a paradise, a heaven on earth. And he said that he looked at it, and the first thing that came to his mind, like for everybody else, was, no, it's just way too high for me. But then he said, no, it may be far away, it may be high, but what I can do is take one step at a time, one step in front of the other. And then, in his vision, he kept going, one step at a time, until he reached that wonderful mountain peak, that paradise that was there. And so it is that we had to think of the spiritual path in this way as well. It is a moment by moment, a progression, that we are always going towards a high goal. Hopefully, we are always going towards a high goal. For example, and this is something that you may want to think also when making resolutions. Now it is February. We probably all in January made New Year's resolutions. How many have been able to keep their New Year resolution? I didn't necessarily. You kept it so far? That's wonderful. That is wonderful. But most people cannot keep it. I personally didn't make any particular resolution this year. But the problem is that when we do these resolutions, for example, we say, okay, today is 31st December, tomorrow is 1st of January. Tomorrow I'm going to meditate 3 hours a day. From now on, I'm meditating 3 hours a day. Now we know what is the mountaintop, perhaps for us right now, is to increase our sadhana to a point of 3 hours. Some people maybe more. But the thing is, if you are meditating 15 minutes every day till that point, meditating 3 hours, it becomes like too much. You will not be able to accomplish it, and then you may fail, and then you get discouraged. And so it is that I read this very nice advice when making any kind of resolution. Yes, we had to see the top of the mountain, but set yourself, instead of a fixed goal perhaps right away, more set yourself a direction. Okay, this year I want to meditate more. What does meditating more mean? Well, if I'm meditating 15 minutes, okay, maybe by December I want to meditate 3 hours every day. What are the right steps? What foot can I put, what step can I take? And then another to accomplish that goal. And in that way, our goal becomes a goal for the year, a direction that we are trying to aspire, and that is much more reasonable to accomplish. But it is not only our actions that we had to do. We had to change our thoughts. We had to visualize ourselves, perhaps, in that goal, in that high goal. And like that, we can reach all of our goals much more easily. I really like how Swami Kriyananda, when he developed the Nayaswami order, the renunciation order, he said that this new order is not there to deny the world, but is more samadhi affirming. That we are affirming day by day that high goal, and that renunciation and everything is directional in that way. The reason I wanted to sing this chant of samadhi is because even it tells us that even samadhi is directional. That is not enough to be in savikalpa samadhi, that we had to even go further until we go into nirvikalpa samadhi. And even after that, there is even more that we have to do. So I would conclude that try that in your life. Try to see that paradise, that it is for you, whatever it may be. Even if it's something that is not necessarily spiritual as of right now, like perhaps something positive that you want to develop within yourself. For example, play more chants or just music in general. Set that high goal, but then introspect and think and put energy on what are the steps that I can take, in what direction should my energy as well as my thoughts be going in order to get to that goal, and then see what is the right next step that I can take in order to reach the goal. I don't know why I have been talking similar things in various of these satsangs of late, but it's something that I believe we all need to be reminded, and perhaps I want to remind myself over and over and over again, because it is very easy in the spiritual path, since we read all this wonderful thing. And I said 3 hours of meditation because Swamiji recommended that somebody who is, in this case in the Sevaka order, but let's call it just somebody who is actively in Ananda, should at least aspire to meditate 3 hours minimum every day. And the first thought when we hear those things, and when we hear anything else in the spiritual path, is, I need to be up here right now. And we forget that in the steady use of willpower is where victory lies. That the spiritual path is a marathon, it's not a sprint. But in the marathon, we also had to realize that, the marathon is not always even like this. Sometimes in the marathon, if you are going uphill, because some karma perhaps comes, some challenge, you are going to be running a little slower, but you are still going forward. And when the slope downs come, that it becomes easier to go faster, you just run and run and run. And then when the grace comes, because the grace will come if you apply your will and you try to attune yourself with the divine will, that grace will come. And in those periods, we can advance very quickly. If you learn to steadily put on your willpower and in a more sattvic way, which is more in tune with the divine will for you, which might be right for you at this time, then you will see that you can accomplish a lot. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this whole thing of the directional development is that imagine a child that has done something wonderful, a child that it comes very natural for them to perform good deeds. Imagine that now that child did something very wonderful. He helped somebody out of his or her own will, out of his own heart. If you were to give that child some money, very good, here is some money as a reward for you, or some candy, or whatever it may be, you are actually not helping the child at all. You may be even just praising them. It will be a disservice to them, because perhaps next time, instead of doing it from the fullness of their heart, they will do it because they are going to expect some money or some candy or some praise to come to them. And so it is that also be very aware. Maybe, you see somebody around you that has a lot of qualities that you would like. Maybe they meditate a lot and you would like to also meditate a lot. And you go and tell them, express to them in this way. Well, perhaps next time they meditate, they will say, wow, everybody's looking at me meditating so much, so it must be good. And it goes into the ego instead. So, be aware. Be aware. Always try to live in this sattva as much as you can, but also try to see what is best for others. That, we don't always have to say everything that we feel like saying in our brains. Be appropriate to the situation, to the people, and express yourself more from the heart. That we don't need to express everything outwardly. Om.